Captain Picard's Aunt Adele cured a lot of sleepless nights with his steamed milk. The Stellar Dynamics Lab decided they need to install new modules, and Worf is experiencing Nibpo. Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello.
My name is Ryan T. Husk, and today we are doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 18, Cause and Effect. We're doing a review of Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 5, Episode 18, Cause and Effect. We're doing a review of Star Trek... Okay.
All right.
Written by Brandon Braga, directed by Jonathan Frakes. More on that in a moment. This was March 21st, 1992. Where were you? And how are you today, Sirach?
I'm great. I'm doing great. This was March what? March 30. I can't hear you.
March 21st, 1992.
21st.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I like to write the dates down.
Me too.
All right. Okay, good. I'm doing great.
Awesome.
Doing great.
So I have some, by the way, this is Frasier here.
Not Frasier Crane.
I have some, he's also Beast in the X-Men movies. I have some pretty strong, edgy opinions on this episode because I have seen it before. But I would like to know, Sirach Lofton, this is your first time watching this episode. What did you think?
Overall, I thought it was entertaining. I thought it was kind of, compelling. Obviously, I wanted to figure out how they were going to solve the riddle. It started off with the shortest open I think I've seen so far on Next Generation, which was about, I don't know if that open was about 30 seconds. It just played out the last clip. There's 36 seconds left. What about this? Let's do this. Okay, use the tractor beam, and then explosion. And then that was the end of the opening credits. And then, so you're like, oh, wow, this is, obviously we're going to cut, when we cut back in, we're cutting back into the moment before that, right? So I thought it set up a nice little time loop scenario. Very interesting for me. I did like, for example, when I was a kid growing up, there was a movie, for all of you that are not old enough to know, but it was called Groundhog Day and was starring Bill Murray.
Oh, man, one of the best scripts ever written. Yes. So well produced, directed, acted. Bill Murray. I mean, that's one of the best movies of all time, that one.
One of the best movies of all time.
Yeah.
If you just want to have a good laugh and just be stuck in this story, Groundhog Day, I thought, by Bill Murray, was one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid. I thought he was phenomenal in that movie. And this episode has elements of that I think, were curious for me to see what the Star Trek spin was going to be on that subject.
Totally. Groundhog Day, I believe, written and directed by Harold Ramis, who was Egon in Ghostbusters and also wrote and directed Ghostbusters. Maybe co-written, but I think that's right. Okay. So
good knowledge.
Thank you. I think. But Ghostbusters, I think, is the most quotable movie of all time. Ghostbusters and Friday. Those two, if I don't quote Ghostbusters and Friday, then I only say like half the things I'm going to say.
What's the number one Ghostbusters quote you think out there?
I think probably people say, "She slimed me." That's a movie that's a quote people say a lot, or so she's a dog, or I don't know. There's just, you can go on forever, honestly. That's a big Twinkie by Winston Zeddemore. As long as there's a steady paycheck in it, I'll believe in anything you say. That's also a good one.
Okay, and obviously Friday is like, man, it's Friday. You ain't got a job.
That's the one, and you ain't got shit to do.
You ain't got shit to do.
How you gonna get fired on your day off?
On your day off, yeah. So
there's some Miss Parker lines that we can't repeat, but anyway.
So yes, Ghostbusters, Friday, rewind back to Groundhog Day, and again back one more step to cause and
There we
effect.
are. We're right back here. Here we go. So here's what I'd like to say about cause and effect, this movie or this episode. This is one of my favorite episodes of Star Trek of all time. Very likely top 10, maybe top 5. And it's back in the day, before Netflix, the way I would watch Star Trek is I would go into the local like comic shop at a mall or something, and I would see their selection of VHS tapes, and you would have to buy an episode for 19.99. One episode, 19.99. I bought maybe 20 or 40 of them over the years, and this was definitely one of them. And I'm telling you, another thing that's great about this episode is anytime I want to introduce someone to Star Trek, this is the episode I use, because you get it right away. And like you like to say, it could be a Twilight Zone episode. And so anytime I've ever introduced Star Trek to somebody that's never seen it, I play this episode. They love it. They get it. It makes sense. And they want more.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, and there were elements of this episode that were really good. I thought Jonathan Frakes, I didn't catch who directed it, director title
Same here.
before and while I was watching it, so I didn't know who directed it until you just said it. And from my observation, I thought there was some really good choices made in the directing style.
So
The
good.
pull in close ups to Beverly Crusher when she was having those weird moments, like, hey, this doesn't feel right. Those close ups were great. Filming her cutting the plant in different angles, one from this side of the room, one from the other side. It just gave enough of a variation of a repeat script, right? Because we're going to hear the same lines almost.
Yeah.
And and because he used different angles each time, it made it feel different a little bit, which is good visually. There were moments, for example, even in the final scene where they explode, the way he covered it, Jonathan Frakes covered it. He did different angles, different shots each time. One time from the back looking at the screen, one time as a close up on Data's face while it was happening, and so just really clever. And the delivery was slightly different by the actors, if you noticed that as well. During the scenes of repeating, at first I was like, are they just going to reuse the same shots over and over again?
like one of those clip shows.
Yeah, is this going to be a clip show? Did this episode only take 2 days to film, but they made it look like it took 7, But no, they didn't. They weren't lazy about that, right? First of all, Brandon Braga, credit to him. Rarely we see a script that doesn't have anybody else's name on it.
Totally.
So, Brandon Braga wrote this script. He did no teleplay, no story by credits. It's written by one name. That's it. And so I that stood out to me as well. Like, oh, Brandon Braga, must be the kind of moment for him when I feel like maybe, he really kind of got his recognition as, oh, this guy's really good at what he does. I don't know that he had a script before this that was as good as this one is, and written solely by him. But this seems like to me a full display of how good a writer he is.
Totally agree. So I didn't pay attention to who wrote and or directed this. Maybe I knew, maybe I'd forgotten. I just kind of dove into it. I've probably seen it 20 times. And when it was towards the end, it was maybe like 2/3 of the way through the episode, I was like, I have got to know who directed this. I've got to know this, because I kept being impressed. Like I told myself, all right, Ryan, just enjoy this episode, because I hadn't seen it in a long time, but you're going to always notice something new every time. And this time what I noticed by far was the directing. I was like, oh my God, these shots and these choices the director's making, and when to do the close up, and just all of these things. There was one close up on Riker. I don't remember exactly where I put it in my notes,
It was fantastic.
where suddenly it's just like his right on his face, and he says something like, "You're going to call my bluff," or something,
Yeah, yeah.
whatever it was, and it's just like this beautiful like close up right at the right time.
With the right facial expressions to match it as an
Yeah.
actor. So he's on both sides of that camera
Mm-hmm.
doing exceptional work.
And then I finally looked. I was like, okay, let me just pause this, check on IMDb, and I was like, oh my God, it's Jonathan Frakes. This is what a brilliant director, especially considering that he was still pretty new to it at that time. Just
Yeah.
A+ directing, I thought, on his part.
And yeah, to add to that, like I said, I like the bedroom scenes shots with Dr. Crusher. Felt like he was exploring that bedroom each way, each time in a different way. So it was like, we saw a table that wasn't featured before when she walked over to move the glass to a different table. He covered the plant on different sides of the plant so that it didn't look like we were seeing the same shot over again. And the shot also in Picard's quarters when he's reading the book and kind of has a revelation like, am I reading the same thing again? Like that shot from far
Yeah.
away, I like the fact that he didn't do close-ups. He kind of did a real wide, far away shot, and it looked beautiful. I mean, it looked just exotic enough where it's like a weird kind of dream episode. You know what I mean? Just a tinge of that, but not over the top where it's like, oh, this is clearly a flashback or dream sequence. So I liked the choices he made in this.
Yeah, and I thought that he did set up those slightly off shots or off-putting camera movements, not super disconcerting, but just enough to where it feels a little weird, because that's putting us in the mood of the characters. The characters are feeling like something is slightly off, but they're not really sure. Maybe they didn't have a good night's sleep. Beverly heard voices. Picard's like, I feel like I read this thing before. There's just there's a little fuzziness, a slight uneasiness. And I thought that his directing choices really showed that, and it put us in that mood. I mean, it was just so good. And to Brandon Braga's credit, totally agree. It's amazing he was able to do that with no credited feedback. I'm sure there was some kind of feedback and whatever, but like the scene where Picard is flipping through the pages, a good writer knows he does. You don't have to have any dialogue. He doesn't have to say anything. He's already mentioned earlier in the script, come to think of it, I felt like I had read some of those paragraphs before. And then 15 minutes later, we see a scene where he's kind of flipping through and we know exactly what he's doing. He's going, wait, what the heck? It's so good. Everything pays off. I just thought the writing and directing were fantastic.
Again, and let me give another payoff and tip of the hat to Brandon Braga when he takes us for a twist in the third act of this. And that is when we expect to see the A7-6 queen,
Yes.
pair of queens.
Yeah.
As the audience, he's already taken us along. So we're like, oh, I know what's going to happen here.
Yeah, now we can
Data's
predict the cards.
Yeah, right. Right. And so now we're just waiting for a variation on that. Who's going to react to it? And he takes us for a loop when he's like, three queens, three tens. You're looking at the hand and you're like, everybody has three of a kind. And it doesn't make sense now. All of a sudden, you don't figure it out. Like you're like, wait a second, I thought I had this figured out. I thought we were going to go into the next loop cycle,
Yeah.
and everybody was going to be that farther ahead in the loop cycle so that they would be able to break the chain. Instead, here we are with like this whole different, like the math is different. Everybody's like, what the hell? We don't even know what's going on. There's a lot of threes all of a sudden, threes everywhere, threes. And we're like, I'm like, what do threes have to do with it? So we're as the audience trying to figure out threes. What are the threes for? You know what I mean? And just such a great, that kind of moment brought me back to The Usual Suspects, because it had a little bit. One of my favorite things, Usual Suspects, is the scene where he's like, you realize that Sosa is a figment of his imagination that he's pulling from all of the things on the wall, and that same moment of realization felt like was happening with Data when he was having the realization what the threes all meant, right? It was like threes, 2,400 different threes, all these threes, like, and it's only something that he would figure out, right? As a whatever
And then he
however he
realizes
perceives
that he must have been the one subconsciously, inadvertently doing it. Like, and it's so funny when he says, I assure you the card is sufficiently randomized, but come to find out later on that like he is actually, without even realizing it, he's counting cards, he knows where everything is, and he's putting things. It's amazing.
Yes. So that was like the Sosa moment in Usual Suspects for me, where Data has constructed this whole thing, while we're trying to figure it out. Like, how did he come up with it?
Mm-hmm. So I remembered what this one close-up was that I really liked was in the poker game. He said Beverly's kind of acting weird. This is maybe middle of the episode. She's kind of acting weird. And she's like, oh, they say, what's wrong? She says, oh, nothing, but we know what's going on. And then Riker says, like, okay, I'll see your 20 and I'll raise you. And then right when he says 50, it's like, boom, close up. He goes 50. And he just kind of stares and like realizes, he's like, you're going to call my bluff, aren't you? And it's just so good because it's like 50, like, because right when that close up hits, it shows he's having the realization at the same time as we're having the realization that it's just it's like a bam, it's like a big, powerful, hit you over the head kind of delivery. And it was so smart. Thought that was great. Another one, again, in the poker room. I don't know if it was that time they did poker or the next cycle, but there was a moment where the camera is just kind of panning behind Riker's head, kind of looking at everybody, but kind of slowly and weirdly and almost a little off kilter, just great stuff.
Yeah. Great stuff. Even Worf, I'm experiencing nib paw. And it's funny that the Klingons have a name for the same thing that we have a name for, right? Mm-hmm. A deja vu, right? And that's a French thing?
Yeah, it means already seen or already saw.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Deja vu, French word meaning already see or already saw.
Yeah, well, it's two words. Deja means already, and vu, it's actually vu, if you can say that. Okay. Which means, seen.
Okay. And, this brings up an interesting topic about this exact subject that I kind of want to extend further into. Maybe we can do another side. I don't know how much time we got, but it's a pretty interesting subject.
Let's hear it.
And that is about deja vu itself. And, because I had recently had this conversation with my friend about what he thought deja vu was. So what we've all kind of experienced it to some degree, right? Where you're just in this moment and feel like you've been at this place before. Totally. And you're like, I've never been here before, but I feel like I've been here before. Not
or
only
someone's that, you're watching TV and your friend is saying something. You're like, I've experienced this moment before.
Yes. And so what is your philosophy or guess or, hypothesis about what that could possibly be?
I don't know. And I've had, I don't know what's normal for deja vu, but I've had it plenty of times. And each time it's almost like a dream where it's like, you think the dream's a lot cooler than it is. Like if you ever try to tell somebody a dream, they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. Anyway, pass the salt, right? But you're like, no, it was really, same thing with deja vu. You're like, whoa, man. To you, it's like a spiritual awakening. You're like, dude, wait, stop. I think I think I just had deja vu. And they're like, okay, I don't care. Change the channel. Like, to them, it's like, nobody gives a shit. But it's really funny because to us, it's like this spiritual moment.
Yes.
I will say one thing that has happened to me too that's weird is I've dreamt of places that I've never been before, and then a few years later see that place for the first time. And I'd never been there. I didn't know where it was. I'm just going by and I'm like, this fence. I saw this fence in a dream 7 years ago. Like that's kind of similar. But anyway, what's your theory on deja vu?
Well, first of all, just to acknowledge what you said about the kind of feeling that you get as an individual experiencing it, but it doesn't exactly, translate to everybody else being that enthusiastic about it, right? Which is actually something they point out in this episode, is relevant to Dr. Crusher saying both of us, like both of us having deja vu at the exact same time, right? So it would be weird if you were to say, yo, I'm feeling this moment, this is deja vu. And somebody else, while you say that, say, yes, yes, I am too. And I've never met you before. And it's weird. Like, are you like, then the two of you are sharing in the common experience as opposed to being just an inside out looking out at the world kind of perspective. So that's the first thing said. But the thing that I think is interesting to me as a philosophy, and this is just speculation because I don't have an answer really, I don't know the answer. I don't think anybody does. But I think there are hypotheses that you can possibly make. And one of those is that to some degree or another, you are experiencing something again, right? And so then if you are experiencing something again, if that is the truth behind it, then that means there is some kind of playback that's happening at some point in what we perceive as reality is perhaps a playback of a reality that has already transpired, right? And we only
glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, and we only recognize it in those moments when we perceive it as the viewer of the playback from externally, like, well, this is weird. I've seen this again. I've seen this before. So you'd have to step outside of your consciousness kind of to have seen it before, or it's tied to a memory. So in that way, I think that we're recording devices, human beings, right?
Oh, interesting.
I think human beings are recording devices that record a lifetime worth of experience through their senses. And that goes onto a hard drive somewhere in your brain. And perhaps that hard drive system is not necessarily deleted. So it could technically remain in some perpetuity state so that as it plays back like we experience, we just keep reliving life over again in this replay back cycle of whatever we've experienced on our hard drive. I don't know.
Yeah, it's nuts because it's not like with deja vu, it's not like we're experiencing something similar where we're like, whoa, dude, I remember sitting here with you and having this conversation about ice cream. It's like you are saying the exact words. I remember this exact sentence coming out of your mouth. It's a duplicate. Whereas, like in the case of this episode, sometimes it would be the exact same line. Sometimes there's a variation of the line because from when they started, everything could kind of play out a little bit differently based on, Beverly reacting to whatever. So that's what's crazy about deja vu is that it's exactly the same thing. And yeah, bringing it back to this episode, I did love exactly that, how Ro Laren's line was identical, but Beverly Crusher and Geordi's lines were different every time because they were affected by the things preceding it in that day. She had one memory or heard of some voices, and that kind of changes the way things progress. And it was really smart to decide which lines stay the same, which ones change slightly, which are just, some of them are just completely different scenes, and some of them are the exact same line but delivered differently because now they're unsure. All that was just perfect.
I agree. I like the progression of it. The curiosity. I thought that Dr. Crusher, Gates McFadden, did a fantastic job
Mm-hmm.
of playing the curiosity and playing the moment so well. She was really the perfect vehicle for this story, I thought, because she had the sensitivity, she had the connection with the captain, to be able to reach out to him on a personal level, and because she's a doctor and analyzes things through her medical background and her scientific analysis of things, he would trust her observations in a way that might be dismissed if it was Worf saying it, right?
True.
If Worf's like, Captain, I'm experiencing nip paw, he's like,
Nippo. Keep your
yeah.
hands off my nippo, buddy.
So it might not have been received the same. I thought she was the perfect person to be able to advance this storyline. I like the way her scenes and interaction with Geordi in the medical room. That also helped advance the storyline because Geordi was able to see resonance of this vibrational echo, of repetition. So that was a great vehicle too. She was able to use the scientific diagnosis of his visor, and that also led to more, discovery on what was going on. So, in general, she was the perfect character to be able to advance this story in the way that it was. I think.
I agree. And we're going to jump into our break. And then I'm going to tell you somebody on the other side of that coin who got jobbed pretty bad.
Okay. All right. Okay.
You may guess. We'll be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Sirach, the Game Changer Lofton. You've heard me say that before, right?
Yeah, hello.
All right. Here are the trivioids of the week.
Like
the Enterprise is the first Federation vessel to chart the Typhon expanse. Lieutenant Commander Data randomizes the cards sufficiently when he shuffles, although isn't that shouldn't it be randomizes the cards sufficiently? He said sufficiently randomized, but it should be, anyway. Ensign Fletcher prevented Geordi from falling down the bottom of the warp core. The Stellar Dynamics Lab decided they needed to install new modules. Captain Picard's Aunt Adele cured a lot of sleepless nights with this steamed milk. Worf is experiencing Nippo. The Enterprise chronometers are off by 17.4 days, and Soyuz class ships haven't been in service in over 80 years. All right, so here's the person that, yet again, this is an episode in which a character has some sort of psychic impression or extrasensory perception, like in yesterday's Enterprise. It was Guinan. Guinan was like, I have a psychic feeling that there's some, and then meanwhile, Counselor Troy's just sitting there like a bump on a log. Now we have Dr. Crusher is hearing voices, and it's the weirdest thing. I'm like, you guys, this poor lady, Marina Sirtis, she basically, her character has one thing where she can sense things. Now, I get it. It's different. She senses emotions. This is not emotions. Yes, of course it works. It's fine. I get it. It's normal. But that poor girl just gets nothing. Now, I do think that, as you mentioned earlier, this is kind of like a Beverly Crusher episode. And, right, it feels like it was a Beverly Crusher led episode. Yeah. And she really looked great in it. Like, they gave her so many great close-ups. She looked pleasant and happy, when she's cutting her flowers. She looked, wise and thoughtful when she's figuring things out. So anyway, the point is, I thought she was great. I agree with you. Gates McFadden was awesome, and I thought that the directors, the lighting was perfect for her to feature her.
Yeah, and one thing I liked, for example, because this, with respect to her, this story was carried by her observations essentially. So, you know, when I looked at her, for example, in the bedroom scenes, a lot of the stuff happened in the bedroom scenes with that glass that was shattering. And I like to see those. I like that she had those kinds of subtle moments where she realized, okay, I'm trying to distort the way things would have been, right?
Yeah,
So she puts the scissors down when she's about to cut the flowers, and then she takes the glass and she realizes, oh, I think this glass is going to get knocked over, right? So she moves it to a different location and knocks it over anyways,
that was
right?
brilliant. Yeah,
which makes you think that's another brilliant kind of, it's a misdirection from Brandon Braga, right? It's like, oh, maybe the glass has something to do with it, but the glass doesn't. But it was great. Here she is trying to change the outcome, right? Which
exactly.
is, I think, which is a natural thing. Like, how do I distort the way things are going to happen, change the outcome so we're not stuck in this loop cycle? And I like that she was proactive about moving the glass, about not trying to use the scissors, about recording the audio of the voices
Mm-hmm.
because she knew the voices were going to come. So
Yeah,
she made a calculated move to record the voices so that she had some audio to diagnose with Data and Jordy. That was great.
super
That was
smart, fast
proactive,
acting. Yeah,
problem solving. Yeah. So I definitely loved all of those things. I thought Brandon Braga and therefore and portrayed by Gates with Crusher, I thought she hit all of the notes to push this story forward. And I also loved other moments too. First of all, Data having the ability to listen to the audio and know that it's 1,000 different voices and sub file categorize.
some are humping.
You know, yeah, exactly. That's enough data.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
Data's like five recordings of what did he call it?
He said,
Romantic conversations.
yeah, some of a personal
Yeah,
nature, and he said some in the act of coitus, or five couples engaged in romantic encounters. And Picard goes, "Your point, Mister
yeah,
Data."
yeah,
Get on with it. Yeah, that was
yeah.
really good. I think that Brandon really understood characters because I thought that he did something really good for Geordi. And what he did so well for Geordi wasn't just like the inner ear infection, stuff, or the sick bay stuff. It was every time they were faced with a mystery. Picard's like, that's interesting, Beverly. Well, I wonder what that is. Geordi always had a theory, a working theory. And so he said, for example, he goes like, maybe it's something wrong with the intercoms. I'll check that out. Or in another scene, he's like, it could be that this thing's happening. I'll check that out. Like he kept always coming up. It was just one line. There's a mystery. There's a problem. Let me
Yeah.
come up with a theory. Now the theories were wrong, but but that's beside the point. The point is that his character is always like, okay, how do I figure this out? What is this? He always had a working theory and something to work towards, which I thought was great.
It was great, and you know, I also I liked the moment there. Data makes me laugh, right? And he's one of my favorite characters on this show. But when Data's dealing out the cards, he's like, six of clubs for you, 3 clubs for you. Worf still no help.
Yeah, no help
And
for the Klingon.
yeah, he kept calling out.
Yeah.
He kept calling out Worf's hand. He's like, basically, you've got nothing. And I thought that was hilarious to me. He kept ribbing Worf during the poker game. That was making me laugh. Um, but yeah, I mean, I also like the moment there. Picard is he's become during this later seasons after they've settled into his role. He's become a lot more, I would say, compassionate
Mhm.
because when he was sharing his steamed milk with Dr. Crusher.
Yeah.
And he was talking about his aunt Adele or whatever to
Yeah.
clear, the cure for sleeplessness and this and that. I thought those kinds of moments show a sensitivity to him. There was also a moment there when Dr. Crusher asked him and said, "Are you experiencing any kind of symptoms that you've done this before or something? The deja vu symptoms." And you can see him kind of go through his head like, it will. I would be admitting to not being 100%, let's say, cognizant of what it's basically
Mhm.
admitting to a kind of a cognizant weakness if you're the captain of the ship, to say, yeah, I'm kind of having dizziness or whatever it is,
Yeah.
right? So so he kind of considers whether he should reveal that in a slight subtle way, and then does convey, like, actually, I
Mhm.
did feel like I was reading this book.
But then he says, it could just be that I read it before. Like that's gonna
Right.
like he still gives like an explanation of like, well, I don't, no
Yeah,
superstitions here.
yeah. Don't commit me to the insane asylum. Basically,
Yeah.
is what he's. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I did feel like I've been here before. Or this thing has happened before. Whatever it is. So what I'm just alluding to is a sensitivity that Picard showed in this particular episode, which was well done for Brandon Braga's writing of his character. There's a sensitivity there that I think allows also for the other characters to shine. He's very pliable with what are the solutions here. Yes, I think you might be right. He's not resisting it and saying, I don't believe in this. This is nonsense. I don't whatever. He's not resisting it. He's actually um, open to the idea that something's happening and that something could be done about it. And even further than that, the sitting down with Crusher, having a personal moment with her, obviously in the middle of the night where she's having hearing voices, to take that moment out with her, that was special to me. I like that scene, and I also like at the end of each one of these scenarios that play out, Picard always says, "Any suggestions?"
Yeah.
Which is weird, but it's open. It's like I'm not claiming to have all the answers right now,
Hmm.
and I'm open to any suggestions. And you better hurry up because we got 30 seconds.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that scene a million times where he says, suggestions, decompress main
Yeah,
shuttle bay. And the data
yeah,
says, I recommend we do a tractor beam to push the whatever out of the way. And that was such a smart twist. I remember when I saw it the first time. Yeah, I did exactly what you're doing, which is try to figure out what that 3 is.
yeah.
And again, it was one of the first episodes I had seen. So I feel like maybe I started watching The Next Generation in syndication in the 5th season, because I remember one of the first episodes I saw was that conundrum one where that guy was like an imposter, that he was suddenly second in command, and I wasn't sure. I was like, wait, I haven't seen this enough times to know if this guy really is part of the crew or not. This is another one of those, because this was the episode where I realized that they have these pips that denote rank. Because I didn't know
Mm-hmm.
that when I just remember when Data looks up and he sees the 3 things there, I was like, oh yeah, what is that? And I looked around, I'm like, oh, some have 2, captain's got 4. I get it now. But so this was certainly season 5 must have been the first season I saw. And I thought that was just a brilliant, super simple thing for Data to look over, see the 3 pips right there and be like, I have a theory. I'm wrong and Riker's right. Let's try it. And it worked. And I thought it was just great.
It did. I only got one nitpick in this episode, and I do think it was fantastic.
I have a lot, but I love it.
Well, okay. Well, my biggest nitpick on this episode is the character they didn't use, and I feel like Ro Laren could have had a larger role in this episode. It would be nice that they, first of all, let's say, for example, invite her to one of those poker games. I don't know if she's into it or not, but to see her at the table would be nice. It would mean that they're trying to welcome her in. She could be difficult about it or whatever, or maybe she's a good poker player and is better than them, or but something to that degree would be nice. I would have liked to see her sitting at the poker table. Also, would have liked to see her in some capacity recognizing the deja vu as well. Just
give her a little something more.
A little tiny something. It will be more inclusive on full use of the cast. They did a little bit for everybody in this. She did have lines, so she wasn't invisible. But she's a smart person. She's tough, and I think that she would also have instincts that are valuable to the problem solving.
That's interesting. One of my nitpicks, and this is just because when you knock out one episode a week for 6 months out of the year, nothing's going to be perfect, And I think this is a beautiful episode, no matter what, even though I have all these nitpicks. And here's one of them. So me nitpicking it, it's funny because I think this is one of the best episodes I've ever seen, yet I have a million nitpicks. But I'm still it doesn't matter. It's just overall, you gotta I gotta get by those because it's so good. One is when Beverly Crusher goes, wait, hang on. Nurse Ogawa is Lieutenant Commander LaForge in sickbay, and Ogawa says, no, I haven't seen him today. And then he walks in and she says, wait, he just got here, right? I'm thinking if I was Nurse Ogawa and somebody said, hey, is Commander LaForge there? Nah. Oh, no, actually, he's right here. You wouldn't think it was so weird. You would just think maybe she's meeting him there. I'm expecting, the fact that she was wait a second. He just walked in. Nobody would act that. Nobody would be. Just, oh my God. You're never going to believe. They'd be like, whoa, weird. Actually, he just walked in. Or yeah, he is. Are you expecting him? You wouldn't think it was so weird. Now, I don't know if that was an actor's choice. I don't know if that was director's choice. I don't know if that was written into the script. Nurse Ogawa is blown away when, whatever. So I don't really know. But that's just one of the things every once in a while I would notice that. And I'm like, would people react really that way? But anyway, that's definitely a nitpick on my part.
Yeah, I get that too. I now that you say that, it certainly makes sense, because you would expect that Dr. Crusher knows that he's on his way up to the sickbay. Then that would be your first inclination,
or anything. Yeah. Oh, Ogawa's late for the meeting she's having with him there, or something like that.
Anything. He had an accident and he's headed up there, and she found out about it sooner than Ogawa.
He told her, I'm on my way.
Yeah. So that's a reasonable nitpick. My other nitpick, because let me also qualify my statement beforehand by saying I love this episode too, and I think it's fantastic. But nitpicks not to take away from the episode. It's our own problem-solving, rational, nerdy Star Trek minds that will not let certain inconsistencies or truths, if they don't line up, we find where the inconsistencies are, and that's just a natural kind of thing for the brain to do if it enjoys problem solving. And for me, my issue was that the USS Bozeman,
Bozeman.
that nobody on their ship
Yeah.
was able to recognize deja vu.
Yeah, none of them
They've been,
experienced it, whereas
they've been doing
on
it
the
100
Enterprise, it
years.
hit everybody.
Right. It hit everybody on
Yeah,
the Enterprise within 17 days, right? 17, yeah, I think 17 days. So they had been doing it 17 times,
totally.
let's say, presumably. And then I'm thinking, so the Bozeman is 100 years into this repeat cycle,
Yeah,
right? And at the very least, they would have noticed that that cycle has broken now that they are able to talk to the Federation. And you know what I'm saying? The
totally.
ship didn't blow up, 100 times like it did.
Yeah. Like everybody on the Enterprise has this sixth sense for, wait a minute, I've done this before. Whereas everybody on the Bozeman's like, I don't know. By the way, the USS Bozeman, named after Bozeman, Montana, which is the site where the Phoenix launched in 2053, I think, 2063, and achieved first contact. So Bozeman, Montana, first contact day. This ship, it's all tied together. But we're out of time, so let's talk about the home run of the day. Sirach, who gets the home run of today?
I'm going to give the home run. I'm going to give a co-home run victory to Brandon Braga and Jonathan Frakes. I think the collaboration of the two of them really brought this piece to life, and I thought that it was like peanut butter and jelly as far as the script and the director choices. I could go with the actor too, but I think for the most part, the lion's share, I'm going to say, goes to Brandon Braga and Jonathan Frakes.
I'm with you 100% on that. I mean, that's back-to-back home runs. That's it. That's like when Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire used to bat third and fourth for the A's in the
Yeah,
90s.
I remember it.
That's it. The Bash Brothers. That's what just
One of my
happened here.
favorite lineups.
Yes,
One
sir.
of my favorite
Ricky
lineups.
Henderson would lead off. Man alive. That was nuts. Anyway, all right. That was pretty easy. I mean, those guys just really killed it. Here are other people who kill things, but only things, not stuff. Dr. Anne Marie Siegel, Eve England out in Wales, Yvette Blackman Tom, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Titus Moeller, Dr. Muhammad Nora, Neil O. Palat, Joe Balsarati, Mike Goo, Dr. Stephanie Baker, Carrie Schwent, Faith Howell, Edward Foltz, the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Jake Barrett, slow down, Ryan. Jake. Henry Unger, Allison Leach Hyde, Julie Manosfi, Jed Thompson, Dr. Susan Fee Gruner, Glenn Iverson, Dave Gregory, he's cool. Chris Sternick, Greg K. Wickstrom, Cassandra Gerard, Chuck A., Chris Garris, and of course, Jason M. Oken.
Okay.
Free for All is up next, everybody. We will be right back on the Seventh Rule. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton. This is the Free for All with Melissa Longo and her cool shirt. Jason M. Oken is here with a cool poster behind him. Faith Howell is on the bridge of the Enterprise D. Chuck A. looks like he's got his prune juice and chill shirt with the guy who says fold. Allison Leach Hyde is here. Looks like L cars of sorts.
Oh, I like that.
Cat. The return of Dr. Stephanie Baker. She's here.
Yay.
Sci-Fi Sister shirt. Carrie Schwent is wearing an Abyssinian kiosk shirt. That's the Cisco Kid variety. Cool. Anil O. Palat is flying in front of the Enterprise with a Melissa shirt. Awesome.
Yeah.
You can get that shirt and the one Melissa's wearing at Walking Art Made by Melissa. Chris McGee is fucked. That's what his shirt says. Is that what everything is? Okay.
Okay.
And the Matt Boardman is wearing his favorite baseball shirt, the Bozeman Phoenixes, in honor of the USS Bozeman.
Oh. Whoa.
Jake Sisko guesses the IMDb score.
I'll say around probably like a 8.5.
Faith knows. She's like this. She's like, does anybody else have any guesses that doesn't already know?
I'll
How
say
about a
8-2.
9?
8-2. Chuck says 9.
9-2.
Chris McGee says 9 as well. The answer is, wow, you guys think it's really good. And you're right. It's an 8.9. Very high.
Okay.
I was really happy to see that. This is one of my favorite episodes ever, and I was afraid that it was going to be like in the 7s. I saw 8.9. I said, all right. It's up there with the big boys. Did we get non-appearance mentions today? I didn't catch any. Chris McGee, is it some sort of time loop? Some kind of...
Certainly is. Data, before playing the audio recording at the end of the loop, said there is evidence of some sort of disaster aboard the Enterprise.
Nailed it. Well, Melissa Longo, will you please get us started off on the right track by telling us what you thought of this episode? Did you love it?
Well, on IMDb, I gave it a 7.1.
Impossible.
What?
I know. That's why I added the 0.1, just so you know. April Fools. Oh, and we were supposed to bring snacks, so I have snacks.
Oh,
these are really
nice.
Delicious.
We're supposed to bring
Delicious, yeah.
snacks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, Sirach said
Balls.
bring snacks next time, so
Yeah.
I did.
Good job.
No, it was a really good episode. I like these kind of episodes where it's you're trying to figure things out. Oh, and I have those too.
Sirach has them too. I hope you try them, Sirach, and love them.
They're delicious.
I got them.
But yeah, no, it's a fun episode because I like these kind of brain teasery episodes, and I liked that they used Dr. Crusher as the catalyst of who we're following through this story. Just because I think she's wonderful, and I think that Gates McFadden is wonderful, and she's very talented, much in the way that Marina Sirtis is very talented as well. And I just wished that we got more stories like this with both of those characters. The poker scenes were so much fun. And especially when Data's going, and for the Klingon, and for the Klingon. That was really great. And and then when we find the USS Bozeman, gosh, could you imagine what it must? I can't imagine how I would react to find that I had missed 90 years. 90 years. Thinking it's 3 weeks that have gone by. Nope, 90 years. It's bonkers. I don't know what I would do. Yeah, good episode. I think I'm all over the place right now. So, take it away, and I'm going to eat my snacks.
You've earned them for sure. Excellent. Thank you very much, Melissa Longo. All right, Jason M. Oken, what do you think of this episode? Do you think this is a quintessential Star Trek episode?
It is a quintessential Star Trek episode. Absolutely is. It's certainly different, as Melissa said, from everything else. I mean, this is certainly not a character study piece. We don't learn anything about anybody. Maybe Dr. Crusher's questionable headdress and maybe musical choices, and the fact that Tuesday night is poker night. But it's still one hell of a ride. It is sort of a high-concept science fiction episode, maybe the best that Brannon Braga has solely written. for the show, and I think it is. It keeps you on the edge of your seat, and you kind of forget this is really, by all means, pretty much a bottle show with not only recycled sets, but even a lot of recycled dialogue for obvious reasons. But it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It certainly has a banger of a teaser. Probably, the shortest and and the most exciting teaser up to this point, and maybe through the entire Next Generation run. And I think a lot of the credit for what we're seeing, other than obviously, putting the episode together on the page, is Jonathan Frakes directing. It's probably the most dynamic episode of the Next Generation that I've seen up to now, and maybe even throughout. The fact that he had to shoot the same sets over and over and over again, and try to come up with different angles or multiple cameras and what have you. It really felt fresh. There's one particular scene where I thought they were kind of reaching a little bit, and I'll talk about that later. But for the most part, it was really dynamic. And he even goes to handheld in Dr. Crusher's quarters toward the end of Act 3, which adds, a little bit of sort of this tension. There's use of close-ups, a lot of different things that are here. So it's really sort of it's a very, very sort of fast ride. And an absolutely wonderful episode. It stands out for a reason. I mean, you may not want to see this 26 times a year, but certainly as something that pops up once in a while, it's a wonderful show to watch. 2 thumbs up.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you so much, Jason M. Oken. Couldn't agree with you more. Faith Howell is like, see you guys. I told you season 5 was the best, but what'd you think of this episode?
Look, even Jason liked it. Okay, 2 thumbs up. Okay, that says something. So yeah, I have absolutely nothing productive to add to this conversation today, other than boom, it was the best. I mean, it's something fun about watching a ship blow up and getting to see it 5 times. And, it was great too, because our characters technically lost, but not really in the end. Though I'm with Melissa, I would love to have seen more of Captain Fraser, whatever his name
was. All right, Captain Fraser it is. Thank you very much, Faith Howell. All right, Chuck A, aka a TNG fanatic. Is this one of the episodes that made you a TNG fanatic, Chuck?
Well, first of all, I think I'm feeling that we did this free for all before, but I'm not sure. Yeah, this is probably in my top 5 TNG episodes. The opening, like Jason was saying, with the ship exploding and then going back there every commercial break, I think except one, maybe, the ship exploded. I did read this on, it was either Wikipedia or IMDb, that behind Captain Bateson, they were trying to get Kirstie Alley to portray her Savick character instead of the lady that was in the background. But I believe it said there was a scheduling issue and she couldn't do it. That would have been really something. I did like the repeating scene of Dr. Crusher with the flowers and the wine glass, and because they always filmed at a different angle, different view, and then like 2 or 3 different ways she was able to knock the wine glass over every time. The poker scenes, like Melissa was saying, were wonderful, especially with Worf saying fold, and then I think it was a $50 bet he didn't like, and Data saying the Klingon. They got a wonderful expression from Michael Dorn on that. The episode, like I said, I think it's in my top 5 episodes, and it was wonderfully directed by Jonathan Frakes, and even the scenes with Riker in there, he kept on going to the bridge and putting his foot up on the edge of the console and taking the same position every time on the bridge for the scene. And then we all knew that it was his decompressing the shuttle bay, which was the solution. But Data recognized that at the end. Such a wonderful episode. I really enjoyed seeing it again.
Definitely. Thank you so much, TNG fanatic, aka Chuck A. Allison Leach Hyde, what is up? How are you? What'd you think of this one?
I love this episode. It is a ton of fun. I didn't get to see this one a bunch as a kid. It wasn't on syndication. Don't know why. So I'd always seen the pictures of Kelsey Grammer on Next Generation. I'm like, I've never seen this episode. And I got to see it as an adult. And I'm just like, what? That's it? There's no more Kelsey Grammer? He's like there for an entire scene. So that's like the biggest thing, because you're sitting there with the name from the beginning just going, where's Kelsey Grammer? Where's Kelsey Grammer? And he doesn't show up right at the end. So like they have you like on tenterhooks the entire time for Kelsey Grammer. So I thought that was funny. But back to the actual show is fabulous. Going through each scene repeatedly with little changes is so much fun to watch, because if you're paying attention, you're going, okay, that was different than this last time. But if you're not paying attention and you're watching it in first run, you're calling up your broadcaster like, you keep restarting the show. What's going on? Because they did that. So that's super funny. So I truly enjoy that. I think they should have listened to Worf when he said, we should turn around. Because then what would have happened? Because he did say, let's just turn around. Let's just go away. Let's just leave. And then, of course, both Picard and Riker say, no, we have to stay the course and stay in our loop. So, but then we wouldn't have gotten to see Kelsey Grammer. So that's fine too. But I thought that was funny that we're still not listening to Worf in this round 2. So, and he keeps losing at poker. So too funny. They used poker in this as like our reset for how they're figuring out like, oh no, we're in a loop, which, we usually just throw a poker game in this series to like, oh, we've got like 3 minutes to kill. Let's give them a poker game. But instead they used it as a plot device, which I really, really liked. Everyone had something to do, which I really liked. Happy to see Ro and her new haircut. I would have liked her to be in it a little bit more, figuring stuff out, but that's all right. So it's a great episode. Love it. And it's always fun to watch.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Allison Leach Hyde, in the heart of New Mexico. Dr. Stephanie Baker is here. What's up, Dr. Stephanie? What'd you think of this one?
I've always liked this episode because I was a fan of Dr. Crusher, and I became a doctor, and she helped inspire me. Watching it again, I thought it was cool that they never tried to make her sexy or wear sexy outfits in this whole episode. If Troy had been the main person in the episode, in those bedroom scenes, she would have been in some negligee instead of Crusher with her outfit, which was sexy. Like, Crusher is sexy in her own way. It doesn't have to be, the way they portrayed Troy. And so I really appreciated that. And in a way, for me, I think I saw that possibly as a way out of the patriarchy and misogyny that I recognized in the 80s and 90s as a young person, that if I went into a profession like a doctor, I could maybe rise above. And some of that was true and some of it wasn't. I think that at the end of this, the next episode should have been get the Bozeman back 90 years. How do we stay here and take them back instead of whatever episode shows up? And then in Things Left Unsaid, I would like to discuss what were the Bozeman people doing for 90 years. That would be fun with charts and stuff.
With charts? Wow, this is awesome. Yes, definitely.
Wow.
Thank you, Dr. Stephanie Baker. All right, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. What did you think of this one? Cool shirt.
Thank you. This episode is fantastic, and as we all know, as a fan of Doctor Who, I've said it before, I love me some wibbly wobbly, timey wimey shenanigans, and this one is all kinds of shenanigans, over and over shenanigans. And also, this episode was written and produced about a year before Groundhog Day, which sort of became what everybody calls this type of episode, a Groundhog Day type episode. But this one came first. Brandon Braga, who loves time travel type episodes, wanted to do something a little bit different, and apparently came up with the gimmick for this episode while he was eating a stack of pancakes, apparently, according to Memory Alpha, which just amused me because I love pancakes too. And when Frakes got the script, apparently he was annoyed. He thought the producers were punking him, like playing a joke on him. Several of the cast members kind of thought the same thing. And the producers were worried that people would think that it was a clip show. That's why they wanted each loop to look a little bit different. They didn't want to confuse people, which apparently they did anyway, because so many people called their local radio or local TV stations going, "There's something wrong with your broadcast. Guys, really? You might want to fix it." Yeah, I read that. I just thought it was hysterical. And of course, I love Kelsey Grammer. Don't really ever watch a ton of Cheers and Frasier, although I did love him. I did love Lilith. I thought that couple it's one of the few memories of Cheers I have that I did quite enjoy. Although personally, I prefer him blue and furry as Dr. Hank McCoy in the X-Men universe with our Patrick Stewart. He's got such a great voice. He pulls off that character very, very well. And I found we do know what happens to the Bozeman later. There's a novel called Ship of the Line where we follow them, I guess, for a little bit. And if you listen very carefully, apparently you do hear his voice when the Borg attack Earth in First Contact. You hear his voice as one of the many that they're overhearing before Picard says, "Okay, we're going and helping him." And yeah, Bozeman, Montana is Brandon Braga's hometown. That's why he decided to name the ship Bozeman. And I actually had a theory, Stephanie, about the Bozeman and the 90 plus years. I don't think they had a time loop of their own. I think they kind of came through the way the Enterprise C does at the beginning of yesterday's Enterprise. I think they just came straight through. They had no idea. The Enterprise only got caught up in their time loop because they tried to get out of the way, and it all went screwy. I have a fun little YouTube link that I'm going to put in the chat that maybe if we get a chance during things left unsaid, I'll show. I do love Bev's PJs. They looked super comfy. Like Jason, not a big fan of the hair ribbon, which she forgot to take out when she goes up to Picard's office to hang out. She puts her uniform back on, but she forgets the hair ribbon. That poor tiny little glass. It was such a cute little glass. I want one of those. But before I get to the limerick, I do have a question. Any show of hands, anybody think that Guinan may have been one of the 10 who could also hear the voices? Well, apparently Deanna wasn't, but I don't know. I think maybe Guinan might have been. And I don't know, I've got 3 things behind me and 3 colors on my shirt. I don't know, I think Data got to me got a little overzealous with the 3. But I will finish off with the limerick, which, yeah, this one wrote itself really, one of the quickest that's ever almost written by itself. I've got a feeling I've done this before. The deja vu is too strong to ignore. I still know how to rhyme. The words pop into my mind. I've got a feeling I've done this before.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Carrie Schwent, aka Crafty Bear. Anil O. Palat is here. What's up, Anil? What did you think of this episode?
Yeah, I love this episode. As everyone was talking about the episode, I think it might be my favorite TNG episode. But I've actually heard you say it a bunch that, if somebody asks hey, I'm trying to get into Star Trek, many shows and stuff, where do we start? I always recommend this episode.
Me too.
Great mystery, a lot of action, it's interesting. You don't really need a lot of background. You kind of get to see all the characters a little bit. So you get that. You get to see Beast, from the X-Men at the end. So people will be like, I know that guy. But yeah, like I think a follow-up episode would be great because like we just kind of ignore this ship that's jumped 90 years into the future, but otherwise it's really great and the direction is good as well. Like I never noticed, but I've seen this episode so many times, like how different how they're trying to make each scene look interesting, right? We're watching the same thing over and over. So yeah, I think this is a top 3 TNG episode.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Anil O. Palat. Chris McGee, your thoughts. What do you think of this one?
Like Chuck, this is one of my top 5 episodes of TNG. Writing, acting, cinematography, and pacing are damn near perfect, in my opinion. I love how the episode starts with a bang, pretty much literally. The teaser immediately puts you in the middle of an action-packed disaster, and the Enterprise explodes before the opening credits, leaving audiences back in 1992 in WTF mode. And of course, as others have mentioned, I love that each iteration through the loop is different enough to keep your attention, even if you've seen the episode a dozen times. Subtly at first, then more dramatically later on. And they're different not only in their progression of the plot, of course, but with each duplicated scene shot from a different camera angle or style and with different line readings. It's just perfect. I'm convinced this episode started the time loop movie genre, which gave rise to such great films as was mentioned, Groundhog Day, Edge of Tomorrow, The Incident, and Happy Death Day, to name a few. I also like that the story is primarily told from Dr. Crusher's point of view, as Melissa, Stephanie, and others mentioned, following her from the poker game to the sick bay visit, then her bedtime routine, the ready room, the conference room, and finally the bridge at the end of each loop. I do have 3 special actor mentions. Last season, we had B.B. Newworth in a minor role, and now we get Frasier himself, Kelsey Grammer, of course, also in a minor role. I wonder who else from that show will show up next season. And as others have mentioned, Michael Dorn has some great comedic timing and acting moments during the poker scene, even with just his facial expressions and mannerisms without speaking a line sometimes. And Ensign J can be seen during the disaster sequence near the beginning of the episode. Mm-hmm. For the memorable quote, it would have been too easy to pick a line that's repeated in each loop, so I found another one that I think of whenever I consider adding nutmeg to something, and that's Picard, of course, saying, "Whenever I get insomnia, I try to perfect the recipe."
Oh, the nutmeg. Thank you very much, Dark Lord Chris McGee. Great stuff as always. VMAT Boardman, you are here. You've got a great shirt. What'd you think of this one?
Well, it's a favorite episode of mine. Favorite Next Gen episode. Actually, favorite across all the Star Trek series. I don't know. I just like that we start off on a bang, literally. I mean, can you imagine watching this episode for the first time? You tune in, you're like, yeah, I'm going to watch me some Star Trek. And all of a sudden the Enterprise blows up and then it cuts to the credits. Not the credits, but to the opening title sequence. You're like, wait, what? Right? I mean, what a cool way to start the episode. And I just think from a creative point of view, what a fun episode this would have been to work on. Like, and to me, it kind of shows like I love Jonathan Frakes as a director because I don't know, I like the way his mind works. And so what a great episode for him to do, to say with the, here's your concept, right? But you have to do something different every time. And I mean, I really noticed this time, like the different things and the different camera angles. Like there was one where they're in talking about, or there was an overhead shot. I can't remember if they were playing poker or if they were in the ready room, but I was like, it was within one of the final loops, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like it's just a fun shot, like different things. And Jason mentioned some handheld. I was noticing that there's shots that are handheld stuff, and I just like, that's really cool. Like, also Captain Bateson. This is not the last time we see him in an official Trek production. See him in season 3, episode 1 of Lower Decks. We get a picture of him as he helped lead a team that helped exonerate Captain Freeman, right? Exonerated from the evil charges that she was accused of. But and also I think it's very fitting that in that same episode of Lower Decks that they went to Bozeman, Montana. You know, interesting. Coincidence? I think not. Anyway, but I just but overall I loved the episode. I thought it was a good episode in the way that it was shot. The pacing of it was great. I love a good Trek mystery. And I don't know, everything came together really well to make this a top episode for me.
Totally agree. However, it's time for Jake's final take. Sirach, any final thoughts on this one?
Well, cause and effect. You've seen it once, you've seen it 17 times. There you go. There we go. Okay, so I think that the warp core needs a rail around because Geordi was going to fall into it. I mean, can we protect the walkway around it a little bit better so guys could not just accidentally fall into the warp core if they get dizzy? I don't know. That's just me. I don't like being at balconies of high buildings, so I'm definitely not going to stand by the warp core if there's no rail or something. Especially with all that shaking that the ship does. Anyways, yeah, I always like it when I see Data's brain. I don't know why, but when I get to see that little positronic brain, like with the lights and circuits, I don't know. I just think, oh, that's cool. It'd be nice if one episode he like forgets to put the patch back and just walks around like, yo, Data, seriously, your brain is showing. But
cover that thing up.
Yeah, cover that up, man. And I don't know, I'm gonna put this out there, but I don't know if you guys saw that glass of scotch in Picard's room, but it looked like he's a heavy drinker. That wasn't like a light glass. That was filled up. He was reading that book. He was really going to get into that scotch or whatever that was, but it looked like a dark liquor to me. I'm guessing it's scotch. Soyuz
class.
Yeah, Soyuz class. Soyuz means union in Russian, and it actually refers to part of the Russian space program. I thought that's interesting. They use that. And lastly, I'll just say it looked like Data hit a buzzer beater 3. Right, Ryan?
That was pretty good. Yeah, that was good. Right. I liked it a lot.
Nice.
All right, there we go. That's it.
Appreciate that.
All right. Great stuff. Thank you very much to the Matt Boardman, Chris McGee, Anil O. Palat, Carrie Schwent, Stephanie Baker, Allison Leachhide, Chuck A. Faith Howell, Jason M. Oken, hi, Melissa Longo, for myself, Sirach Lofton, Melissa, and Mr. Aaron Eisenberg. Thank you all so much for hanging out with us. We appreciate it, and we hope to see you next time. Until then, always remember the 7th rule.